Good afternoon. As it is 5:30 p.m., I will call this City Council meeting of November 5th, 2025 to order. We acknowledge that this meeting is being held on the ancestral lands of the Coast Salish people and pay our respect to those past and present. Tonight's invocation is provided by Chaplain Timothy Miller of Naval Air Station Whidbey Island, serving in his civilian capacity as an Anglican priest and local faith leader. If we could all stand for the invocation.
Thank you and good evening. As your faith or conscience allows, I invite you to pray with me. Almighty God, we are grateful for opportunities to exercise our will in the election of those deemed fit to lead in public service. Grant that in these practices and that choice, we might promote the welfare of our community according to your care for us. Make us continually mindful of our call to serve. Give us wisdom and strength to know and do your will for the good of those who have the privilege and pleasure of giving our time and energy to. Save us from discord and confusion, defend our liberties, make us one. That our gratitude for our many blessings would far outweigh any change or challenge as we move forward together by your grace. Amen.
Please remain standing for the pledge and please lead us on the pledge, Councilmember Marshall.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Mayor Pro Tem is joining us remotely, so we are all present and accounted for. Roll call is not necessary. I am going to move forward to our approval of the agenda. Are there any suggested changes to the regular agenda as it has been presented? All right, hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda. Yes.
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to approve the agenda as presented by Councilmember Merrow, seconded by Councilmember Marshall. Is there any further discussion before I call for a vote? Hearing none, all in favor, raise your right hand. Passes unanimously. All right, we are going to move on. We have a presentation this evening, and our presentation is Island County Human Services Veteran Service Programs. Here to introduce them is our Island County Human Services Deputy Director, Bill Larson, and he will also be providing us with a PowerPoint presentation. Welcome, Bill. Good to see you.
Good to see you all as well. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. I've been asked to speak to you tonight about our Veteran Services Program, which I'm always happy to do because I've brought our team here. And I'd like you to just see who's doing the work on the front lines and serving our veterans of Island County so well. And so they're here tonight, and after I give you a little brief overview of our program, if you have any questions, you can certainly ask me or you can ask the folks who are doing the work. So as the Mayor said, I am Bill Larson. I'm the Island County Human Services Deputy Director, and I'm also the Program Manager for our Veteran Services Program. Just before we get started, I wanted to give you a couple of interesting points about the program and just about our county as a whole. Island County has the highest number of veterans per capita of all 39 Washington counties. The state average per county for veteran population is about 8.1%. Our county more than doubles that at an average percent of 17.6 of our population are military veterans. Prior to September 2023, we did not have a designated Veteran Services Officer. That is when we got our first Veteran Services Officer on board, and we started serving our veterans and got really busy. Zach over there on the far end, he was our sole Veteran Services Officer for quite some time, and he was inundated because when you do something great for people, they tend to tell their friends. And so they were beating down his door. And through the efforts by our Board of Island County Commissioners and our state representatives, we have received funding for a second Veteran Services Officer. And the closest to my left here, David McInnes, he's our newest Veteran Services Officer. So now we have two on board. David's gotten his feet under him, and so we're getting our veterans in and out a lot quicker, and we're serving a lot more than we were able to. So we have two distinct programs in our veteran services. Our Veteran Services Officer program works primarily with disability compensation, veterans document support. We help with elderly and disability programs and other VSO resources. These guys will assist individuals in completing, filing, and tracking their benefit claims, and they're also available to represent individuals at VA hearings. Next number is really important. 75% of all self-filed initial veterans disability claims are denied. So when veterans initially try to work their own way through the system, 75% of those claims are denied. The problem with that is a lot of times that's where the story ends. A veteran will get that initial refusal and they don't come back. They don't try to rework it. They don't realize that it's not always their fault. It could have been, but it could have been a minor paperwork error, and that's where our VSOs come in. They do they completely review everything they submitted, and then they submit a whole new application. But if you get told no, and you just take that as a no, there are very oftentimes, benefits that you are qualified for that are earned that you don't get. And like I said, that's where these guys come in. Okay, so our program, VSO by the numbers, and I'm going to apologize because these numbers are not accurate. This is a dynamic program and we're getting new numbers in every week. So these were accurate about a week ago, but that 145 claims processed so far this year has gone up to 176 so far. What I'd like you to call your attention to is when our VSOs put in this paperwork, when they submit on behalf of our veterans, their success rate is 86% for new or increased benefit applications. So on that previous slide, there was a 75% failure rate, so a 25% success rate. These guys are getting an 86% success rate on their initial applications or a resubmittal of someone who's been declined before. That's huge. So far this year we've had 55. I know it says 49 up there, but Zach was kind enough to update me this morning. 55 initial claims granted. When you have an initial claim granted, not only are you getting those financial benefits, but that also opens up access to secondary benefits such as employment programs, healthcare, and education benefits. So when you get that initial award, it opens up that financial compensation, but a whole bunch of other doors to better the lives of our veterans. Many of them go back to school. Many of them get enrolled in VA healthcare that they didn't know that was available to them, and their lives across the board become much better. Back pay and first year benefit totals. So last year, the total, and I want to explain to you how we get this number. Very often when we initiate a request or a claim, there's two things that happen. If there's back pay that gets awarded to our veteran, that is a one-time lump sum, so they get that, and then they're awarded generally a monthly payment based on their disability. So we take that initial back pay and then just 1 year of what that award is, and that's how we use this number. So we don't extrapolate this out to inflate the number. So it's that initial back pay plus that first year. So last year, that total number was $2.4 million that went directly back into the pockets of our Island County veterans that they would not have received. Most of that money gets spent right back in Island County because these are our veterans that live here. As of today, so far this year, the back pay and first year benefits for veterans is $5,134,000. So we have more than doubled that, and the year is not even over yet. That's also illustrates why we needed a second VSO. Okay, so aside from our veteran service program, Tyler, who's sandwiched in the middle there, is our veteran services coordinator, and he runs our Veterans Assistance Fund. So who does that help? Well, that helps individual veterans, their spouses or domestic partners, their surviving spouses, and the dependent children of living or deceased veterans. And so we help not only the veterans, but their families and their surviving spouses. What kind of assistance is provided to them? Well, emergency assistance in the form of food and fuel vouchers, utility and emergency home expense assistance, burial assistance, and we do referrals and case management coordination with not only other Island County Human Services programs, but also many of our other local partners in Island County. This is a program that is not meant to be long-term. This is a program where if you're an income-eligible veteran and you experience a health issue, you experience an accident, a detrimental, something that's gone wrong with your home or your vehicle, and it's your only way to get to and from work, we can help veterans get back on their feet. This is to get them back to a self-sustaining position. So our Veterans Assistance Program, by the numbers, again, I'm going to update these numbers for you. So far, we've issued over 630 vouchers this year, primarily for food and fuel, but also rental assistance and burial assistance. Over 120 veterans and their families have been assisted, and so far this year, we've issued over $91,000 in assistance through this program. Part of what we do as well is not only support them financially, but then get them to the services that they need to get them back up on their feet. So 97 referrals to Island County Veteran Services officers where they've gotten the benefits that they deserve, which gets them. One of the things that we talk about is a measure of success for this program is when someone is no longer eligible for the program, because you have to be income eligible, which means your income is below a certain point. Once they get in touch with our VSOs and they get those benefits started, now they're no longer eligible, but that's because they're making an income. So that is a measure of success. And we've sent almost 90 referrals out to other local resources and community partners. In both of these programs, we have office hours, but we also travel to our veterans. A lot of our veterans can't get around. They don't have vehicles. They're not near a bus line. We visit them in their homes. We meet them at our community partner organizations, and we also staff local area events for veterans or seniors. So if there's an event, and it's a veteran event, if it's at the VFW, the Legion, if it's at the senior center, our guys have a table there, and we're letting people know we're here and our services are available. So in summary, Island County Veterans Services makes a significant and lasting difference in the health and well-being of our veteran population. With the collaboration of our community partners, short-term crises are addressed with long-term solutions and wraparound services. Financial stability, health, wellness, education, and employment assistance are all combined to assist veterans holistically and address all the issues that they might have, because there's never just one. With that, I would like to, before I say this is over, and thank you, I would like to ask, are there any questions that I or our staff can answer for you about anything that we've talked about, or anything maybe I haven't talked about that you have a question about?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, and thank you, Mr. Larson. I mean, I guess my question, how do you guys get the word out about this? I mean, I wasn't aware of the depth of the services you guys are providing. I'm sure other people in the community are not also. So how are you getting the word out?
Well, okay. Why don't you come on up here, Tyler?
Yes, sir. So as Bill mentioned, we do attend many outreach events to try to connect with the public as much as possible, but really our biggest way to get the word out is word of mouth through our successes, first off, and then secondly, through working with our community partners. The Opportunity Council, which manages a few veteran-focused programs, they have been a huge referral service for us. A lot of their programs have very similar income requirements to mine specifically. So oftentimes we work hand in hand, and that's kind of what he was getting at when we talk about working with community partners and the like.
Well, you know, certainly, like I say, I think tend to be informed, and I had no idea of the breadth of those services. And you know, I think it also goes back to last council meeting. We had a visitor here to the council chambers who, you know, was talking about housing authorities and et cetera. And you know, we were able to put the message out, you know, that's really the county. I mean, there's a lot that comes under Bill's hat there with human services. And, you know, lots of times the one extreme, the homeless side of thing gets a lot of the attention in the conversation. But, we have to remember there's a lot of people who are close to that homelessness, right, that are, people that we can keep from, entering homelessness. And that's a big thing, I think, that Human Services does. We were talking earlier with Commissioner Johnson, 170 new affordable housing units being invested in by the county through Human Services here in the city of Oak Harbor over the next year and a half, 80 of them coming online here over the next few weeks. And so I don't think a lot of people realize that there is assistance before you get to the point of homelessness. And this is just another avenue, and we appreciate you coming and sharing very much.
Thank you.
Yes, Councilmember Stuckey.
Nice to put some faces to some of the names, worked with burial benefits in the past. Question, when we say that 86% rate on the first go, what happens if it's some just minor paperwork correction? What's the time frame on that? Is it like submitted and then 2 months later you find out there was an error and then 2 months go by to fit? Like, what's the time frames on these sort of things?
It's variable because it's the federal government. Okay. But yeah, and prior to the shutdown, we could get an answer in a month or two. If it's a complex issue and they have clarifying questions or they have to go to further medical appointments, it can be dragged out for a while. And that's where that back pay comes in, because they pay you the back pay based on when you applied to when the decision was made. So if they make a decision 10 months, that's an outside, but sometimes it happens 10 months after you apply, you get back pay based on what you would have been paid had they approved that 10 months ago when you applied. So the answer is it just varies. If it's something simple like that, we can usually get an answer back within a couple of weeks to a month.
Yes, Councilmember Romero.
So Commissioner Larson, thank you very much for your presentation and your service. I did want to ask that with regard to the emphasis on collaboration, communication, coordination, and many other similar words of association, what do you view that would improve our coordination and collaboration to support the services that you all provide, at least from the city?
Well, as Commissioner Wiesner said, not everybody knows that we're out here yet. We work with senior resources. We work with a number of other organizations that we get referrals from. We go to as many events as we get invited to. Sometimes we'll crash an event if we have to. But what you guys can do, quite frankly, is just get the word out in the city as well. But we're up and down the island. We're on Camino. We will drive to where the need is. Like I said earlier, a lot of times it's impractical to expect people to come to us and have an office appointment. So we go to where they are, we bring everything that they need to get those claims done, and we submit them, and then we track them for the veteran.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, Councilmember Marshall.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Bill, for the great presentation. Given that the funding for this is still so relatively new, how secure is your funding for the long term? I mean, this seems like a very vital resource that you're providing and certainly getting great return. I mean, how stable is this, for the long term?
Right now, we're stable for the next couple of years, is what I believe. Again, this is all state funded, and then that part of that is, is what the state is getting federally. But this is in the budget now for the next couple of years, at least for the new position. For the old position, it's pretty embedded. But, when you're looking at it, might cost a little over $100,000 for a VSO service, and times that by 2, and then you look at the return to the community and to the veterans of over right now $5 million a year. I can't see anyone making sense of stopping this funding for Island County.
It certainly seems like a no-brainer, but you can't really trust
Exactly. Yeah.
politicians, right? But thank you so much for all of you for the service that you're providing to our community.
Yes, Councilmember Arms.
Thank you for presenting this. Do you get any resistance? I know a lot of military vets don't want to necessarily file, and, they feel like, they did what they were supposed to do and they're not supposed to get any money. Do you run into that?
That is a great question, and I will tell you that that is a problem that we run into. Very many veterans, regardless of whether they just got out of the service or whether they were out for the last 30 years, they're very proud of their service. They're very proud of what they've done for their country, and they're often too proud to ask for help. So very often, by the time they get to us, it's because they really don't have very many, if any, other options.
They apply, but don't you have to have the interview like in Seattle or someplace else for the final paperwork?
No, and we've got, so many of them will have to go to doctor's appointments, but they try to get them as close as possible. So a lot of times these guys go to Mount Vernon, Anacortes. Very rarely do they have to go further than that. We had one of our case managers working with a veteran yesterday who had to bring this gentleman to Seattle. But this is a gentleman who had significant health issues, needed an electric wheelchair, needed quite a bit of assistance, and didn't ask for it until he didn't have a choice. He was brought down to Seattle. VA is going to send him to rehab for two weeks to learn how to use his new prosthetics. They're getting him a new electric wheelchair with 6 wheels. They're getting him some in-home care, all the things that he had no idea he was entitled to. And it was because he finally asked for help, and because they initially came into our veteran service coordinator, and he got them in touch with our case manager, who took him down to Seattle. And that's, these numbers are great. They're big, and they tell a story about the impact that we're having on the community. But we have so many individual stories just like that, people whose lives were completely and utterly turned around and transformed because of the work that these guys and our case managers in human services are doing on the ground.
Thank you so much, because it's really needed.
Yes, Councilmember Wittgenstein.
Thank you again for that presentation, and thank you, gentlemen, for what you're doing for our veterans and those in need. It's a wonderful population to work with, from my own experience. From your position, Bill, what do we need that we don't have that we can potentially advocate for or try to get? Because we don't want to just get stagnant. We're doing it, yay, but there's still so much that's being missed and so much more that can be done. What else do you guys need that potentially we could help with?
Well, one of the things that we see with veterans, especially our aging veteran population, is the really debilitating and damaging effects of isolation. And I don't know how to address that globally, but if we could find a way to get our veterans connected to some kind of social interaction, to some kind of meaningful interaction with others in the community. It doesn't even have to be other veterans. A common thread that we experience or we hear from a lot of our veterans is they're just lonely and tired and sad and depressed. We live on a beautiful island, and for those of us who can get around freely, that's awesome. But our beautiful island can also be pretty far spread out, and when you don't have access to a vehicle, or you're not right off a bus line, it's not always easy to get out and get those interactions that are so vital to people's mental health.
Thank you. And again, if there's anything I can do with you gentlemen as well, and to collaborate and help, please let me know.
So, Bill, I just want to say again, thank you for being here. Your presentation was impactful at the Island County Board of Health when we were there for that presentation, and having you guys here is important for me to have you guys come here and present as well. This is something that's near and dear to my heart as a Navy veteran as well. So, thank you for what you do, and thank you for being here. We appreciate you guys very much. So,
thank you all as well.
All right, next up for presentations, we have Navy League Community Affiliate presentation, and here to discuss that with us is one of our co-presidents and former council members, Miss Beth Munns.
Good evening, Council. I am proud to present you with the community affiliate plaque. You are actually the first one since COVID. We used to have about 20 of them, and COVID happened, and then everything kind of fell apart. So I am honored to know that you are supporting the C services. Can anyone name the C services that we support? There's 4. Coast Guard's 1. Thank you, Speaker. There's a Coastie. Navy, Marine Corps, and Merchant Marine. The sea services to keep the shipping lanes open. Oak Harbor Navy League was started on July 5th, 1956. Anyone, you don't have to be connected to the military to belong. You can come to meetings without belonging. But we serve, there's basically 10,000 at the base, not counting the families. But this is what we support, and I am honored to present to you as a community affiliate stepping up to the plate and leading the charge. And I hope by your example, other businesses around will join. But there's a lot to do, and we're just proud to have you along. Basically, we do C, support, educate, and advocate. That's our business. Thank you so much, and I'll present this to
Thank you so much.
someone.
We'll come down there. You guys want to come down too?
You got it, you guys go. We got you back there, so. We got it. I'm not walking.
So you're telling me I shouldn't kick you in the...
No, please don't.
Kick the other one.
Next meeting is the veterans program on the 11th, at the 11th hour of the 11th month.
See you then.
All right, that concludes our presentations. We're going to move into public comment. Members of the public may comment on consent agenda items or subjects of interest not listed on the agenda at this time. There will also be an opportunity to comment on the remaining agenda items during the meeting as appropriate. Comments on public hearing items will be heard during that portion of the agenda. The public can also visit our website prior to our meetings for methods to submit public comments or contact the city clerk, Julie Nestor, by phone or email. When submitting comments, please include your name and address. Public comments sent anonymously or from a non-verifiable address will be shared with the mayor and council but will not be displayed. We received 3 new public comments since our last regular meeting, and they are displayed here. All right, at this time, I will ask if there are any members of the public present who wish to speak to items not listed on the agenda or on the consent agenda. If so, the clerk will call your name in the order in which you signed in to speak. Please step forward to the microphone and state your name and address. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Mayor, we have no one that signed up to speak this evening.
All right, is there anyone that didn't have an opportunity to sign up but would like to step forward and make public comment at this time? All right, hearing no one else who wishes to speak at this time, we'll close public comment and we'll go on to the consent agenda. Staff has presented the listed consent agenda items, all of which were included in the meeting packet. Are there any objections or changes to the consent agenda as it was presented? Councilmember Arms.
I think the city city council calendar for 2026, I think that's something that we should go over in the retreat. I think, we're changing as a city and we're growing, and we need to look at how much time are we putting in and what we need to do.
Okay.
And maybe refine it a little bit, just to talk about it instead of just kind of keep putting it out all the time.
All right, so you're wanting to remove that item from the consent agenda? All right. And are there any other items that we want removed from the consent agenda at this time? So, can I hear a motion to approve the amended consent agenda as presented?
I approve the.
I just have a quick question.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Our retreat probably won't be until after the first of the year. So I'm just wondering do we want to approve the proposed calendar for now and then fine tune it at the retreat? Or are we pulling the calendar and not approving anything until we have a retreat and can iron it out then? I just want to clarify.
So Julie has a comment, and I was also going to bring that up, but I was going to do that before you guys actually voted. So, but go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to state that we do provide our calendar to our paper of record, which is the Whidbey News Times, and we are required to do that at the end of the year for the following year. So since our council retreat will not be till after the following year, I think Mayor Pro Tem is correct.
So, and just to speak to that, then I think that, and again, correct me if I'm wrong here, I'm just going out on a limb, but I think that we could approve it as it's presented tonight. And then if you guys decide you want to make changes during the council retreat, can we make those changes at that time? Yes, so you could do that then. Yes, Councilmember Marshall.
Thank you. I could also offer another opportunity. We could just workshop it as opposed to wait for the entire retreat. We could talk about it at our next workshop and then approve it at our next meeting or at the early December meeting. If you wanted to continue to pull it and have discussion about it. It doesn't have to wait till retreat. We can workshop it.
So my only caveat to that, I'm just playing devil's advocate here, is you do have one, right? Is it one new council member coming on? So they may want to have some say in that timeline. Yes, Councilmember Merrill.
Thank you, Mayor. There's no reason for us to delay approving this because it can be changed. Anything that we do can be changed, and a lot of thought has gone into this. So having just kind of a framework to work with, it's just like amending a budget. Things change, so we can deal with that. So I generally favor keeping it in the consent agenda.
That's fine.
Okay, so do you want to withdraw your request to remove it from the consent agenda?
Yeah, I'll withdraw it.
Okay, all right. All right, so once again, are there any objections or changes to the consent agenda as presented? All right, hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
So we have a motion as presented to approve the consent agenda as presented from Councilmember Wiggenstein, seconded by Councilmember Marshall. Is there any further discussion before I call for a vote? Hearing none, all in favor, raise your right hand. Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. All right, we're going to move on to mayor's comments. Have a good evening. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. My comments for this evening, we have a fraud alert. You may have seen this on social media, but this is a reminder to report anyone who calls you impersonating an Oak Harbor police officer. I believe even our chief Chief Tony Slowick also made a social media post on this. The scammers are trying to get residents to pay fines and threaten them with being arrested if fines aren't being paid. Please call 911 to report these calls. Our Oak Harbor Arts Plan is on the road. You'll be seeing more about the Oak Harbor Arts Plan in the community. Pictured is Arts Commission Chair J.R. Russell, who presented the Arts Plan at a recent Oak Harbor Seroptimus meeting. Visit oakharbor.gov for more information on the Arts Plan and how to submit an idea to the Arts Commission. Public records training. We just had a city public records officer. Nicole Bradley coordinated a Public Records Association boot camp here in Oak Harbor. We had people from all over the state of Washington here for 2 days. This 2-day training was a hands-on session for public records officers. We had a very fun and successful all-staff meeting. City offices were closed for an annual fall all-staff meeting and lunch on Thursday, October 30th. The event included fun interaction and team-building activities, a presentation of the great work being accomplished by all of our departments, and employee recognition awards. The event was made that much better by what I understand may have been record staff attendance and participation, as we were told by Emma. So thank you to all of you that were able to attend. I realize that not everyone was able to attend because it was in the middle of the day. Upcoming community events. There are a number of upcoming community events in our community pictured here. There will be a Veterans Day event at the Oak Harbor High School Auditorium on November 11th from 11 a.m. to noon, and a Veterans Day parade sponsored by the Oak Harbor Main Street Association starting at 2 p.m. downtown. Reminder that we have several vacancies on our advisory boards. We would like to see those filled. See the city's website for information on how to apply and requirements for applicants. We also have the end of the year coming up where terms are expiring, so we're looking for new members to fill those spots on those advisory boards. Stay connected to city information and activities at any time by visiting our website and our Facebook page. And lastly, just would like to prematurely congratulate the winners of last night's election results for Councilmember Merrow being elected, as well as soon-to-be Councilmember Peterson. So congratulations to you both. I think it's pretty much mathematically impossible for you guys to lose, but who knows what could happen.
Excellent.
All right, with that, I will turn it over to City Council for their comments at this time. Councilmember Stuckey.
More of a question. When you talk about terms being up for commissioners, and we haven't always had terms where they're extremely loose, if you have commissioners whose terms are up, do they formally request to stay on? Because they're allowed to do 2 terms. How do you want to handle that?
Yeah, no, we're going to actually ask them if they want to.
Oh, you're going to reach out to them?
We are going to reach out to them, yes. So, but they would have to reapply, and obviously they would, be allowed to do so.
Sure, but
Yeah.
you guys will reach out to
Yeah,
them?
we are reaching out to people.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Yes, Councilmember Romero.
Thank you, Mayor. With respect to the commissions, I like to emphasize that it's one thing to have quality abilities to address the subject matter of the commissions, but there's that dedication and commitment piece. So I urge in the recruiting of these individuals that they have kind of a proven track record of commitment, so they're just not filling a slot. Thank you.
Yeah, so just to maybe refresh you or even include, I don't know if you're aware that you guys are actually now part of the process on some of these where you're interviewing the folks or whoever the council chairperson is or council advisor person is on that group as part of the interviews of that. So you guys are part of the process in selecting who those individuals are. Yeah.
Mayor, the other thing I just wanted to add is we also in the application do state that you have reviewed and understand the meeting dates and times and are committing to that. So they're checking a box and having that process of saying, oh, these are the meeting times that they have based on the calendar, so I can commit to that. So we're trying to address that as well from your feedback.
I believe that we're also reiterating that during the interview process too. So, yeah. Anything else from anyone else? No committee reports? Nothing? All right, we are going to move on to public hearings and meetings then. First public hearing is ordinance number 2029, levying general property taxes for fiscal year 2026 per RC. Is this really E or should it be W? Should be W. Okay, 8352070. And here to introduce this is our finance manager, Chaz Webster.
All right. I'm hoping my voice is going to work for me tonight because I'm getting over a cold. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Chaz Webster, Finance Manager, and tonight I'll be presenting the city's 2026 property tax levy for your consideration. Thanks, guys. All right, under Washington State Law, RCW 8455, I'm going to put my glasses on actually. The city is limited to a 1% annual regular property tax levy increase. And for 2026, MRSC reported the implicit price deflator, IPD, at 2.44%. So the city may take the full 1% without a substantial need ordinance. The IPD rate is the state's measure of inflation used to determine how cities may increase its regular property tax levy each year. The IPD is similar to the CPI, but broader. It reflects inflation in the overall economy, reported annually by the Federal Bureau of Economic Analysis. And what the IPD rate tells us is that on average, prices increased by 2.44% over last year, and the city can move forward with the standard 1% increase. This chart illustrates the IPD rates since 2008, and as you can see, the IPD fluctuates significantly over time. In years like 2010 and 2016, it even dropped below 1%, shown here in red. And when that happens, cities must pass a substantial need ordinance in order to take the full 1% increase allowed under state law. In contrast, in years where the IPD is above 1%, such as 2022 through 2026, cities are automatically permitted to take that full 1% levy increase to help keep pace with inflation. The IPD is important because it reflects how inflation impacts local government purchasing power. When costs for fuel, equipment, and materials rise faster than 1%, a stable levy increase becomes critical to maintaining our current service levels. By adopting the 1% levy this year, the city ensures it can continue funding essential services while keeping pace with inflation, whereas not taking the increase permanently lowers the city's levy base. This slide outlines two scenarios. If council chooses to make no change, the city would forego the 1% allowable increase. That means the property tax levy would remain the same as the prior year. No additional revenue would be collected from existing properties. While that might sound minor, the long-term impact compounds, and skipping this year's increase permanently lowers the city's future levy capacity. It's reducing our ability to keep up with inflation and maintain service levels. The second option is to adopt the maximum 1% increase, which generates about $76,000 in additional property tax revenue for 2026. And that increase is modest citywide, but it's vital for offsetting rising costs in labor, utilities, and supplies. This required calculation is done before factoring in new construction, improvements to existing properties, or changes to state-assessed utilities such as wind, solar, and biomass facilities. Those adjustments will be added later by the county assessor and will slightly increase total collections. This slide shows how the 2025 property tax rate is distributed among the different taxing jurisdictions that make up a typical Oak Harbor property tax bill. The total property tax rate for 2025 is $8.47 per 1,000 of assessed value. Each dollar collected is shared among several jurisdictions listed here that provide services to Oak Harbor residents. The City of Oak Harbor's 29% funds the city's general government operations, including police, fire, parks, planning, and administration. It's the portion we're discussing tonight when considering the 1% levy increase. The other 71% goes to other agencies like the state schools, Oak Harbor School District, Island County, Snow Isle Library, the Hospital District, and North Whidbey Pool Park and Rec. So to put this in perspective, for a $400,000 home, the total property tax bill is about $3,389 a year, and of that, roughly $997 goes to the City of Oak Harbor. A 1% increase in the city's portion equals about $10 a year, or less than $1 per month. This slide highlights the relationship between assessed property values and the levy rate, and why they move in opposite directions. For 2026, the city's total assessed valuation increased by about $60 million or 2.31%. That reflects modest growth in Oak Harbor's property values due to new construction, renovations, and general market appreciation. The levy rate is the mechanism that adjusts to make sure the city collects that limited amount. When total assessed values rise, the rate per thousand of valuation tends to decrease so that overall collections stay within the state mandated limits. For 2026, our levy rate increased 1 penny per 1,000, or about 0.44%, even though valuations went up by more than 2%. That's a small and balanced adjustment. And this demonstrates an important concept. As property values go up, the levy rate goes down, and the city doesn't receive a windfall from rising values. The total amount we're allowed to collect is capped by law, regardless of how high valuations climb. This slide summarizes the total proposed levy amount increase for 2026 and breaks down where that increase comes from. The city's total regular property tax levy is proposed to increase by $126,128 over the prior year, and that total comes from two distinct components allowed under state law: new construction and the statutory 1% limit. The first portion, about $49,000, comes from new construction and property corrections, and this reflects new homes, businesses, and improvements added to the tax rolls during the year. The second portion, $76,736, represents the 1% increase allowed under RCW 8455, and this is the city's annual adjustment to maintain its service levels amid inflation and rising operational costs. And again, as previously mentioned, for the average homeowner, that equates to roughly $10 a year on a $400,000 home, less than $1 a month. So on the right, the chart visually shows the city's total levy for 2025 and 2026. The increase you see here represents that $126,000 amount in total new revenue, and it demonstrates that the city's property tax growth is carefully limited and balanced, coming from both responsible application of the 1% increase and natural community growth through new construction. This slide illustrates why it's important for the city to adopt the full 1% levy increase each year, as the increase was projected in the 2026 budget and is also needed for long-term financial sustainability. The graph compares two scenarios. The green line shows what happens if the city adopts the 1% levy increase each year, while the blue line shows what happens if we choose not to. And even though the difference looks small at first, the impact compounds over time because future levy limits are based on the prior year's total. If we skip a 1% increase one year, that lower base becomes the foundation for every future year. And by 2030, the difference between consistently adopting the 1% versus doing nothing is nearly $474,000 in lost annual revenue. The 1% levy increase acts as a safeguard against inflation and future revenue loss. Choosing not to take it even once has a lasting effect. Adopting the 1% levy is a routine statutory step. It allows the city to keep pace with inflation, preserve essential services, and protect fiscal health. Council is asked to adopt ordinance number 2029, authorizing the 1% increase and authorizing the mayor to sign the 2026 tax certification. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chaz, for that presentation. At this time, I will open the public hearing, and I will confirm with our city clerk that we received no public comment on this issue.
That's correct, Mayor. No public comments were received.
Great, thank you. And I will request any additional public comments from those gathered here with us this evening. If you would like to make public comment, please step forward, state your name, address, and limit your public comment to 3 minutes. Is there anyone with us that would like to step forward and make public comment at this time? All right, hearing nothing or seeing no one, I will close the public hearing and call upon council for their questions and comments at this time. Councilmember Merrill.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Chaz. With regard to the effects of inflation on the city, that is so important because there's a knee-jerk reaction among some taxpayers that a 1% is just added on money. And you've made it clear that it's really not meeting the effects of inflation, correct?
Right.
So really, it's not a gainer for the city. And with regard to the effect on property tax levels, that could vary significantly depending on the property, yes? Okay. Would you speak to that matter with regard to just the general principles of the property piece, or David, or whoever would speak to that?
Like the calculation, or?
Not the details, but just the subject, the categories, or the things that affect whether somebody's property
I could talk to that.
tax will increase in purchasing value or not.
Yeah, David Goldman, Finance Director, Deputy City Administrator. As far as how it affects each individual property, it all depends on a bunch of different factors. One of the main factors is the assessed value. Every year, the assessed values change. It's, the Island County Assessor takes a look at all the properties and assigns a new assessed value to a property. The way that the levy rate works is the total assessed value for the entire city is taken in aggregate. And if that goes up, like it went up about 2 or 3% this year, and if this 1% property increase goes up, that's the amount we actually collect goes up 1%, then overall the levy rate itself is either going to stay flat or go down. But how it affects the individual property all depends on how your particular property is assessed compared to the average. So if the average assessed value increase for a particular year is like, let's say 3%, and your particular property's assessed value stays the same or increases by 1%, then it's possible in those years you might actually see a property tax decrease. However, if your assessed value goes up higher than the average assessed value increase for the taxing district, then you could actually see a greater increase in your property tax bill. It all depends on your particular property situation.
Thank you, Mr. Goldman, and also Chaz.
Thank you, Councilmember Romero. Anybody else? Questions, comments at this time? Yes, Councilmember Wiesner.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, and thanks for that explanation, David. And, the way I look at it is it's a piece of pie, right? And the pie can only get 1% bigger. It's how the slices are divvied up. If everybody in the county's property values went up 50%, and every single person in the county's property values went up 50%, everybody in the county would end up still paying the same tax that they paid the previous year, short of the 1% increase. So it's tough for people to understand that, but that's the reality of it. We're making the pie 1% bigger, and how it's divided up and who pays for that pie, that is the job of the Island County Assessor to determine what values properties increased in value quicker than other properties, which may share a little bit bigger of that pie. We go through this discussion every year, and the compounding. Thanks for hitting that home, because that is the reality of it. Yeah, for those folks out there listening, the city has a few funds. We have a water fund and a sewer fund that are both 100% enterprise and proprietary and go only to service water and sewer. The city does not take any funds outside of those accounts other than to provide that service, which not all cities provide. Lots of places it's a public utility district that supplies that. But our general fund, which is what funds streets, police, and fire. Well, streets, the Transportation Benefit District, but we subsidize the Transportation Benefit District, the street fund, out of the general fund. We do have some.
Well, a lot of cities do that, but we're in a very lucky position that we're able to fund our streets activities out of the motor vehicle fuel tax and the CAPRON. Not a lot of counties in the state actually get the CAPRON, so that's a big help for both San Juan County and Island County. But we do subsidize it from REIT funding, but not the general fund yet. Hopefully, the state will fix the formula for transportation funding, and then.
That's around the corner.
Yeah, hopefully one day they will. But the way it's going, eventually, we may have to tap into the general fund or find another way to fund transportation.
Yeah, police and fire, right, are
Yeah, yes,
biggies
police and fire
out of
are the
there.
majority of the general
right?
fund.
And parks, right? The things that make a community livable. And if we don't do a increase this year, then it's going to come back. Next year, it will be a 1.1% deficit, and then a 1.2, a 1.5, a 2, and over a 20-year period, the 1% this year will cost us 5%, even if we took on an additional 1% every year from this point forth, just by missing the 1 year. And so I'm glad that we're not having to have the discussion about having an extreme need. That has been really the discussion we've had to have the last few years. I think there was 1 year we had to go to the 2% and declare an extreme need. So I'm glad to see that we're able to stick with what I think everybody in the state anymore considers the minimum. This was something that came on a little over 20 years ago. We've been stuck with this. This was one of the Iman bills, and for 20 years, whether inflation was more than 1% or not, this is what we were stuck with. So in years such as the recent years where I think we had almost a 7% inflation figure, the city's not able to provide as many services because we have not the money coming in to keep up with that inflation factor. So thanks for hitting home the compounding deal, because this is really one of those deals where we really don't have a decision. The only decision we have here is to not declare a extreme need, which is not what we're doing here. And I think that's the only decision we have. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Wiesner. Anybody else for the good of the order on this issue? Yes, Councilmember Marshall.
Thank you, Mayor. It shouldn't come to any surprise for anybody. I'm not a big fan of this. I just am not crazy about tax increases. Chaz, you did a great job of articulating the need and why we should support this. In the years where it was below 1%, it looks like 2010, 2016, and 2021, did we do the substantial need ordinance?
Yeah, I believe so. We haven't skipped. Yeah.
Can you tell me how much we have in our general fund or in reserves, as you know?
I do not have that on me at the moment.
I'm trying to think. When I reported it a couple months ago when we did the calculations, I think it's about in the 7 millions or something. That's the unencumbered, and there's some restricted stuff too. But yeah, I think the unencumbered is around 7.
So is it fair to say that we need this $76,000 to maintain our current service levels, or would we have the ability? Where it's compounding for the city, it's also compounding for the taxpayer, right? If you do 1% every year, it just continues to increase and become more expensive. And we're in a time right now that financially people are struggling, and so to say that we have a substantial need, I struggle with that when we actually have $7 million of unencumbered reserves. And to say that we need the $76,000 to maintain our service levels. We're being asked here in just a very short while to increase our service fee, our master fee schedule. And those are some of the things, in my opinion, right, is where we maintain our substantial level of needs because you're absolutely right. Costs go up, things are more expensive, but we're putting things to certain items, right? This item costs this much more, therefore we increase that item by that much more. To say we just need to do it just because we need to do it, and if we don't do it, it compounds. Yeah, I get that, but we're not in a substantial need, and I may be wrong, and whatever council wants to do that's where I struggle, and I don't want to put our city in that position where we're going to be in a substantial need later down. It's just, it's just rough for me to say, well, because we can, we will, and if we don't, it's going to cost us more money. That's one of the reasons why I have been opposed over the last couple of 2-3 years about increasing that limit, because once you take it once, now all of a sudden you got to do it every single year because it's going to cost us more money substantially down the road. So, not an easy position, unfortunately, and but I really appreciate your presentation and expressing the need. And so, but this is why I internally struggle with it.
So to answer your first question about utilizing the fund balance, the best practices with the use of fund balance, fund balance is really just like one-time money, money sitting in a bank to mitigate any kind of risk. It's almost like an insurance policy, right? And we have ongoing operational expenses, and the best practices in our financial policies say you need to have recurring revenues to fund those recurring expenses. You shouldn't be taking one-time money to fund recurring expenses, because eventually you'll be in a situation where you'll run out of that one-time money. Even if it doesn't seem like a lot at the time, eventually it builds up over time. And the second point is, when the budget was adopted in 2000, the 2025-26 biennial budget was adopted, a 1% increase to the property taxes was included in the budget for both years. And that's to help fund operational expense increases, such as majority of our expenses are personnel. Like fire and police is more than half of the general fund. And, we have those agreements that we entered into with the various bargaining units, and those all have, those annual step increases and cost of living increases and so on, which are greater than that 1%. So all this recurring revenue, it doesn't seem like a lot, in one particular year, but over time it does build up. But, that money was, really meant to help, fund our ongoing expenses, including, salaries and benefits.
So some of these items that, Jesus, this is so loud today. Some of these items that are in the master fee schedule, they're, in the fire department, for example, there are significant increases, 100%, 200% increases. Where does that money go? Does that go to the general fund? Does that go to the fire department?
Yep, that goes to the general fund to help offset the cost of providing fire protection. And we have all our department directors here who can respond to any of the items in the master fee schedule to give you a more detailed overview of, the reason for those changes and what those changes will help with the city.
So it's theoretically, some of those increases could offset that $76,000 that we're talking about with a 1% increase, correct?
Well, it all depends on the particular reason for an increase of the master fee schedule. If there's a new program coming out, we might be providing new services, providing inspections to buildings, to commercial buildings, to ensure that there's proper fire protection there for customers who come in there. I mean, it all depends on the particulars of each of those fees. So we have all our directors here to talk about that. I believe we're talking about that in a couple items, so yeah.
Yeah, it is coming up, yeah. Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Marshall. Anybody else for the good of the order? Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to adopt ordinance number 2029, increasing the property tax levy by 1% for the city of Oak Harbor and authorizing the mayor to sign the 2026 property tax levy certification.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion as presented by Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Councilmember Mero. Is there any further discussion before I call for a vote? All right, hearing none. All in favor, raise your right hand. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Yays. All opposed, raise your right hand. 3 against. You have the names? All right, so that passes 4-3. Thank you very much. All right, the next item on the agenda is ordinance number 2030, Mid-Biennial Budget Amendment number 2 to the 2025-2026 biennial budget. And here to introduce that again, I'm sorry, Chaz, is our finance manager, Chaz Webster.
I do, it's just an ongoing, but I will do it just right before, this is gonna be a little longer. Yeah, maybe. I should probably do that. That is nice, thank you. Okay. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Chaz Webster, Finance Manager, presenting Budget Amendment Number 2 to the 2025-26 Biennial Budget. This is a mid-biennial true-up budget amendment that takes into account City Council actions, annual grants that have occurred year-to-date, and new requests. Budget amendments require public hearing and approval of an ordinance. Budget adjustments move existing budget appropriation with no overall increase. I have 31 items to present to you, so please bear with me. Beginning with the 2025 budget amendments with previous City Council approval. $23,100, purchase of the Highway Vehicle Stabilization Kit and Multi-Force Basic Airlifting Bag Kit, approved January 7th, 2025, funded by the Firehouse Subs Grant. The grant revenue was received May 21st, with no city match required. $50,400, installation costs for electric vehicle charging stations, approved by Council on May 20th, 2025, to be funded by the Shop Facility Fund to cover costs that had exceeded the PSE incentive. $156,300, purchase authorization for the replacement of city shop flooring, approved by Council on October 21st, 2025, funded by the Facility Replacement Fund. $23,400, purchase authorization for replacement of the Fire Station 81 showers, approved by Council on October 21st, 2025, funded by the Facility Replacement Fund. $2,785,400, Council authorized the expenditure of funds for the purchase of the Regional Public Safety Training Facility, approved by Council on October 21st, 2025, funded by State of Washington local and community projects, opioid settlement funds, accreditation incentive funds, State of Washington Criminal Justice Training Commission, Police Department, payroll savings, excess stabilization reserve, and fund balance. Continuing with 2025 budget amendments, new requests, $35,000, purchase of Fire Station 81 gym equipment funded by increased revenue received from the Whidbey Health EMS Services contract, resulting from higher call volumes. The fire department anticipates an increase of approximately $90,000 to $100,000 in EMS service revenue. This additional revenue supports several fire department operational initiatives, as referenced in related budget amendment items hereafter. $40,000 firefighter overtime at Fire Station 81 to sustain operations during temporary staffing shortages, funded by the increased EMS service revenues as previously referenced. $15,000 firefighters uniforms and patch design in navy blue, funded by the increased EMS service revenues as previously referenced. $50,000 return funding to Equipment Replacement Fund 502, which was initially used to temporarily fund the cybersecurity position in 2024. $168,672, purchase and implementation of new and upgraded software across city departments, funded by respective fund balances. $8,500, purchase hardware replacements for police and fire departments, funded by fund balance. Moving on to 2025 budget adjustments with previous City Council approval. $50,100, professional services agreement with Better City LLC, approved by Council in November of 2024. It's funded by fund balance sourced from Goldie Road funds restricted for economic development purposes. $531,000, adjusting the budget originally scheduled in 2026 to 2025 for the completion of the roof replacement of Building C and the fuel island in connection with the bid award approved by Council January 21st, 2025. $196,000, adjusting the Equipment Replacement 502 Fund budget for the purchase of 2 Ford trucks and outfitting for 4 vehicles for the police department funded by correcting budget with actual expenditures. This is a true-up only and no fund transfers will be made. Purchase authorization approved by council on May 6th, 2025. $36,300 in connection with the settlement agreement and release of claims with Harbor Land Company funded by fund balance approved by council on August 6, 2025. $150,000 purchase authorization of Dell Pro 16 Plus laptops approved by council August 6, 2025. Continuing with 2025 budget adjustments, new items, $228,000, cost of the environmental impact statement associated with the comprehensive plan funded by fund balance, sourced from Goldie Road funds and economic development reserve funds. $73,000, increased use of legal advice and litigation activity funded by fund balance. That concludes 2025 amendments and adjustments, and now we'll move on to 2026. For 2026 budget amendments, previous council approved items, $23,000 supplemental funding for the Pacific Northwest Chalk Fest event funded by the Creative Arts Fund, approved by council May 6, 2025. Continuing with 2026 budget amendments, new requests, $92,600, proposed addition of annual paramedic incentive pay for 6 certified personnel. Incentive pay funds are reserved for potential compensation adjustments related to fire department emergency medical response duties pending future collective bargaining negotiations and city council approval. Purchase of $83,500, purchase of 1 new patrol vehicle for the police department, including equipment replacement and repair funding and outfitting, funded by the federal elective pay credits rebate program and operational savings. $66,000 to cover increased costs for indigent defense due to new caseload standards published by the Washington State Supreme Court, funded by the Public Defense Grant and fund balance. Moving on to 2026 budget adjustments, previously approved by council, $25,000 to align the amount of lodging tax funding allocated to LTAC grants approved by council on September 2nd, 2025. Continuing with 2026 budget adjustments, new items, $617,900, salary and benefits for additional 4 paramedic certified firefighters to Fire Station 82, funded by fund balance sourced from fire service property tax levy revenues. The paramedic incentive pay component remains subject to future labor contract negotiations and council approval. $32,800 is the initial equipment associated with the 4 firefighters funded by fund balance sourced from fire service property tax levy revenues. $8,000 training associated with the 4 new firefighters funded by fund balance sourced from fire service property tax levy revenues. $340,900 salary and benefits for additional 2 paramedic certified lieutenants to Fire Station 82, funded by fund balance sourced from fire service property tax levy revenues. The paramedic incentive pay component remains subject to future labor contract negotiations and council approval. $16,400 initial equipment associated with additional 2 paramedic certified lieutenants to Fire Station 82, funded by fund balance sourced from fire service property tax levy revenues. $4,000 training associated with additional 2 paramedic certified lieutenants to Fire Station 82, funded by fund balance sourced from fire service property tax levy revenues. $6,800 increased ICOM user agency fees funded by reallocating budget in the public safety departments and fund balance. $47,000 increased use of legal advice and litigation activity, including a 3.7 increase in the vendor's rate. That concludes the 2026 budget amendment and adjustment requests. The recommended action appears on the screen for you. Thank you.
Chaz, thank you very much. Before I open the public hearing, I just want to make a note that the weather is getting very bad out there, so we may lose power. If we do, there'll be a few minute delay while the generators kick in and we convert over to generator power. So bear with us. So at this time, I will open the public hearing and confirm with our city clerk that we've received no public comment on this issue.
That's correct, Mayor. No public comments were received.
Great. And I would now turn to those that are here with us this evening and see if anyone would like to step forward at this time and make public comment on these issues. All right, hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and call upon council for their questions and comments. Councilmember Stuckey.
If we do lose power, the conspiracy theorists will be out, and it is your fault, Mayor. There's going to be a test on all of everything Chaz went on later. That's always the mayor's fault. I do have, the only question I have is and it may be Chief Slug who has to answer this one. The $6,800 to ICOM. I mean, they did do the sales tax, which, I was hoping, hey, they're going to get a lot more money. Maybe they'll start getting less money from the government entities. And now we're seeing an increase on top of the sales tax of $6,800 they were giving them.
Yeah.
Or am I reading that incorrectly?
No, so good afternoon or good evening, Mayor and Council. The ICOM fees, the change actually is an increase in fire cost, and there was a reduction in, what's that? Well, it's just being honest. And there was a reduction in the police departments. At the end of the day, I think the amount will be about the same. It's just moving from the police budget to the fire budget. So at the end of the day, the total amount that was budgeted for 2026 a year ago is going to be the same amount of money.
Well, I think it's slightly, it is slightly higher, yeah.
Pretty close.
Yeah, but you are correct. ICOM did not reduce the amount of fees that it charged out to its agencies in light of the 2.2% sales tax.
I can provide some insight as I sit on that board, just so you are aware. The reason for that is they will not start collecting their money until the first quarter of 2026. So for budgetary purposes and cash flow purposes, they decided to keep things static for the next year, and then they'll look at those reductions going forward after that. But I think they were premature when they were originally promising to lower amounts. So it wasn't prudent to do that now when you look at their financial situation.
And I think we have a few people on this board, so I would just ask that, I understand that, but the year prior, I don't know, when people say they're going to lower the amount they're charging, I don't quite buy it. So if those on the board could help push that a little bit, because they got a substantial budget increase.
No, we're absolutely, I mean, Chief will attest to this too, we're absolutely pushing for that, but right now, nothing has changed in their financial situation. Sure. That change won't take place until 2026. So and if we don't make these adjustments, then they're going to be scrambling for money, so.
Understand. I'm just saying when they go for the next year's budget cycle, because that was one of the things that they, didn't promise, but implied that fees could be reduced based on that sales tax.
Yeah, and those meeting minutes reflect the objections by myself, Chief, as well as Commissioner Johnson, who's on that board as well. So
wonderful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else for the good of the order? Yes, Councilmember Marshall.
So I have that same question, but so they won't start collecting until 26, but we're paying for the entirety of 26? I mean, when do they start actually collecting those revenues? I mean, couldn't they kind of front load those fees, or?
They start collecting the revenues, or they should start seeing the revenues about April 15th. So it won't hit until after April 1st. So
they start collecting January 1. But they don't get any benefit from that until after the first quarter.
For the entire second half of the year, though, they're getting that money, right?
Yeah.
But we're budgeting for the entirety of 2026, so that's correct?
Right.
I'm not a math guy, but that doesn't make sense to me, that we're still paying more money for the entirety of 2026 when they're going to.
How much more money are we paying? What is this?
$6,800, but overall, we're not seeing any decrease, but an actual increase of $6,800 when they're getting this tax revenue starting in April.
So the $6,800 was an increase in the fire department, but we anticipate the actual cost being a little bit below in the police department, but not by $6,800, by a lesser amount, so maybe half So maybe the actual increase is going to be about 3,000 or so. But it's
Still
not-
spending more money when
it's
they're
not a-
collecting a tax.
I looked at the chart and it was just a proportional share thing based on calls. It was kind of a formula. So that's just how it came out, yeah.
Just to answer the question, the board, the ICOM board did not vote to spend any of the tax revenue coming in right now. So right now they are, the ICOM board has only budgeted for what user fees are without actually seeing the amount coming in, and knowing exactly what that amount is. It was difficult for the board to make a determination on how much they wanted to reduce the user fees. The board can make adjustments throughout the year and course correct. There's been conversations about what that might look like, but without actually receiving the money, the board didn't feel comfortable, reducing any user fees at this time. So.
I think.
And the good news about this is it's just a budget, we're asking for a budget amount to go up. If the bill that comes through, they actually make an adjustment in the middle of the year and they charge us less, then we won't spend up to the budget. We won't need to. So this is simply a budget line that's going up. But when we actually get the bills, we'll know, how much it'll be if they make an adjustment. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I'm good.
I think lastly, the director, the ICOM director will be, they present annually to the city council. So there will be an opportunity for you guys to talk directly with her.
Mayor Pro Tem has her hand raised.
Yeah. I was just making sure Councilmember Marshall's done first.
So, Chief Anderson, this projected increase of $90,000 to $100,000 for the EMS, that's an annual increase, I'm assuming?
Correct.
Okay. And then the only other question I had was for the amount for the EIS. Was I correct in saying that was $228,000? And what was the fund usage for that? Where's that money coming from? What account?
Oh, yes. Oops.
I know it's in here.
Oh, I have it, yeah. The money for the 228,000 environmental impact statement is sourced from the sale of Goldie Road funds. That was restricted for economic development purposes. And also the economic development reserve funds, which are coming out of the business license rates that the council approved like 2 or 3 years ago.
And an EIS is economic development?
Economic impact.
Yeah, it'll lead to
It's
economic
environmental
development.
impact, is it not?
Well, it'll lead to economic development because that's one of the primary core studies that has to be done in order to allow development to occur in the downtown area that's covered by the EIS.
My point in saying economic impact is it all affects the economics of it. So.
Yeah, but don't try to pretend like it's an EIS is economic impact. It's environmental impact.
It's an environmental impact, yes, but it's affecting the economics of everything. So. All right, Mayor Pro Tem, you're next.
Thank you. I'm hoping that someone can clarify the indigent defense expense. You said due to the case volume or schedule, caseload, something that was published. So is the has the caseload gone up? Do we know it's going up, or are we, is it similar to the ICOM situation where we think it's going up and so we're doing a budget amendment to allow for that, but it may end up not being quite that much? Someone please explain the indigent defense caseload thing to me. That seems like a massive increase
So
to an already expensive bill.
So we know the caseload is going up. We are seeing that. We also, in order to apply for additional grant funding that has been made available, we have to have separate attorneys doing that because of the requirements of the grant. So we are seeing increased cases, though. That is part of the impact.
Okay.
And that's because of the Supreme Court ruling. They have to do less cases per attorney, which is the other impact.
Gotcha.
Also, 2/3 of that 66,000 is to be funded by the public defense grant from the state. About 20,000 is from the general fund.
Gotcha. So the total budget amount is 66, but That doesn't necessarily mean that's coming from our coffers directly.
Yeah, correct. With budget amendments, we have to increase the revenue side and the expenditure side. So the
Right.
expenditure side has to go up by 66,000 based on the work that we did with the indigent defender or public defender about
Yeah.
projections and cases and everything. But as far as the revenue side, that can be made up of various revenues, and 2/3 of the revenues are grants, and 1/3 of the revenue is fund balance.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilmember Wiesner.
Thank you, Mayor. Chief Travis, we've got $1 million roughly in 2026. I assume all of that is actual money that we had accounted for within the bond levy for the fire department, and it's just we didn't necessarily have it broken out as to number of officers and how that was budgeted. So that's really kind of all budgeted money, per se.
Correct, yeah. So the only part that we added was the actual paramedic piece, and we separated that out, and that's being paid by the money we're getting in the EMS levy. So these are just for the 6 firefighters we would have had. It was planned for 3 firefighters and 3 lieutenants. We needed, because of an operational personnel injury, promote an extra lieutenant last year, and so now you're seeing 4 firefighters and 2 lieutenants. But this is just to staff the entire new station, yeah. So, and in that levy there, right now, just so you guys are aware, and this is at the starting of the year, was a little over $3 million. So that's sitting in cash to support the fire station.
And the $40,000 in 2025 for additional overtime, one-time expense?
That is correct. Because of PFMLA, we had 4 or 5 people that had babies and 2 long-term injuries. And so we have to still staff the fire station, kind of out of our control, unique circumstances. It's not how we plan to run operations, but I can't control babies and injuries off duty.
So we consider it an absolute fluke, and this is not something we would expect on an annual basis. Yeah.
COVID effect.
COVID effect. And then regarding the increased expense that we're already predicting in 2026 for additional legal advice and litigation, is there something that I don't know about that we already have on the radar screen for 2026?
You can speak to it too, but we've been, as you're well aware, there are several legal cases that we've been cleaning up. So we're looking at finalizing those and finishing those out. There's also the Wien lawsuit that is becoming very costly. So.
And I assume there's some sort of a mathematics behind that number that we just didn't pull out of thin air.
We did, and there's also a report that our staff produces in the mayor's office that breaks it down for us out of departments. And then we're also doing a lot of operational work and making sure that we're taking care of a lot of things from the development services side. So we're making sure we're addressing some properties and some other things and getting those SOPs and documented letters in place. So we're doing a lot of work that's necessary in order to move us forward in the direction we're going. We also have the comp plan work that we've been doing. So there's just been a lot of work that's going on around those things.
And I guess, since we're on that subject, I think I brought it up in during this last biennium budget, and I think I brought it up in the previous biennium budget. There was a point in time where we were at a tipping point between having legal in-house and having legal out-of-house, and where the cost savings began. It all started with not being able to find staff, right? I mean, that's what it started with, but that's been quite a while back. I just want to make sure that we're keeping the eye on the ball on that we do all understand. And traditionally, for many years, legal was handled in-house, along with public defense was handled in-house. And there was a point in time where those scales tipped. It became a cost savings measure. Obviously, as costs escalate, I want to make sure we're keeping the eye on that ball.
We are monitoring it. The other thing we have is a lot of public records requests, and there's a lot of work around that needs to be addressed. So we're monitoring it. We also work with different attorneys with disparate expertise. So we work within the Kenyon Deason Law Firm to identify that.
We would, yeah. So I think what you're getting at is we wouldn't be able to have in-house the number of attorneys that we're currently working with in different areas that we're needing to address at the city, we wouldn't be able to have that many people internally. We couldn't afford that.
Certainly understand, and again, needs change, just want to make sure that we're balancing that out, right? And I will go back to Councilmember Marshall's comments involving the EIS. I just have to, because being one of the people that voted when we did the sale of that property, and the discussion was having that money directed towards economic development, I got to tell you, it never pictured in my mind, and I understand SEPA, and I understand EISs, and I understand comp plan amendments, and I understand all of this stuff, but I don't know that ever in the back of my mind I pictured, an environmental impact statement that was being created by a mandatory, update, right, that would be part of economic development that we would be using those funds for. I don't think that was ever in any of our minds, and so I guess I have a little heartburn about it, because again, I don't think that was the intention. And then just last question, Hillary, I just want to make sure on the up and up that this budget amendment, which is very extensive, and by the way, thank you, Chaz, great job of presenting lots of stuff. Probably one of the largest, I think, budget amendments we have done, certainly in my time. So great job presenting. But Hillary, I want to make sure there's a large item that's in this, that there was an item that I recused myself from all discussion and all involvement in. And I realize that we're not approving the item that's already been done by council, but any conflict with me being involved with the approval of the budget amendment with that item in it?
I don't believe so, since you recused yourself from the decision. You're just ratifying it with the budget amendment. But if you feel uncomfortable, certainly do.
All right, thank you.
All right, anyone else for the good of the order? Councilmember Merrill.
Thank you, Mayor. I just am aware that if the city is moving forward and doing new constructive actions, that it takes money to do it. And so I have no reluctance about doing a budget amendment, because as long as it's showing that we're moving forward in a constructive, productive, efficient way, I love that. So just because it's an amendment doesn't mean it's forbidden or that it's suspicious. It's taking care of business like it should be. Thank you.
We appreciate that. Thank you very much, because we are working very hard every single day, and this reflects that. So anybody else for the good of the order? Yes, Councilmember Marshall.
Thank you, Mayor. David or Chaz, have we done an RFP for that EIS study yet?
Yes, we just got the results of the RFP, and we're working through the contracting of that. Again, to be wise with our dollars, we are just making sure that we have all of the items documented clearly for the contract as to what we're doing. So that's where we're at right now in that process.
Okay. So is it, would it be necessary to do that budget item right now, or can we wait until we have that contractor? I do have the same concern. I just don't know that an EIS is economic development. I understand it's part of the comp plan. The comp plan is something that we've been planning for a long time. I just, same with Councilmember Wiesner. Never envisioned that when in selling these properties that were going to go to economic development, that environmental impact was part of that economic development.
Well, part of the thing is that economic development wasn't defined by the city council. It's not in the city code specifically, like this is what economic development is. And this is a funding source that can have a rational nexus towards economic development, because once this study's done, then we can go forward with the rest of the plan. However, if the city council doesn't want to allocate that particular pot of funding towards this, then other revenues are available. There's always the general fund, because this is a one-time thing. That's just the thought. The general fund balance is less restrictive than the economic development reserve, though. So there's always a opportunity to spend more restrictive money. It's always advantageous to do that if it falls within the criteria of what the money was allocated for. So,
How much of the balance will, using this 228, how much of the funds from the sale of those properties will this then use?
it might take me a minute to pull up that spreadsheet.
And if I remember right, I mean, this is kind of, for lack of a better term, an afterthought, right? We've been in this comp plan discussion for almost 2 years now, and the EIS didn't come up until very late in the process. So it was just more about, well, this is something we should do, and are we just looking for a funding source for it? We had the economic development plan that was created. If I remember correctly, there's a second phase to that. And so are we taking the ability to implement a second phase to do an EIS for the comp plan?
So the plan with the EIS is it provides the defense of what we're doing in the comp plan, and it provides that information. I also have Kat Kamak here who can speak to it more specifically if you'd like, but it is an element of these new requirements that are coming down from the state for what we're doing. So that's what we're trying to address there. For future plans around economic development, there is a fund that David was talking about that, we can continue to build and use as those projects come up that we want to address. So that's where we're at with that, if that answers that question.
And CAC is there for a resource too, if you'd like to get more information.
CAC, would you like to speak to it?
I have the balance. Oh,
please,
sorry.
go ahead.
All right, so the sale of the Goldie Road property was about $310,000, and from the business licenses projected through the end of this year, we got about $240,000 for a total of $555,000. We've allocated $43,000 back in 2024 for the Better City ED Action Plan. It says $125,000 for, this is the EIS. So 125 plus 75, anyway. So that's what we have allocated towards it. So we have sufficient funding. If you take 555 and subtract out to the 43, we still have about 500,000 through the end of this year. And this, what is this? How much? Yeah, about 228 from that. So you'll still have a significant amount in the pot. But CAC is available to answer any questions you have regarding the details of the EIS.
I think your answer is like right around 233 is what I meant.
That's what I'm hearing.
Kat Kamak, Principal Planner. I think the question was, is there a connection between what we're doing with the EIS and economic development? Is that the question? I think the answer is yes. If we weren't doing an EIS and we were trying to hit the targets we'd come up with some changes, development regulation changes or zoning changes to just meet the target. Now, that's just trying to plan for your 20-year population. With an EIS, we have an option to study things further under the environmental analysis. So we can bring forth more development regulations and more development opportunities to consider in the environmental impact. And if you choose the alternatives that promote that, you're directly implementing some tools that would take longer if you took an economic development plan route. So there is a connection. I think there is definitely a connection with this update and with the EIS to consider options for more opportunity. So if you can see the link there for economic development, then I think it's up to you to determine whether that's worthwhile. But our comp plan will definitely provide economic opportunity. How that pans out in the community is yet to be seen. But we can assess those impacts in an EIS and plan for higher impacts because of more opportunity.
Okay, thank you, CAC, appreciate it.
Thank you, CAC. Thank you, Councilmember Marshall. Anybody else? Yes, Councilmember Wiesner.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, CAC, and David, I appreciate the comments, but I'm just going to say the fact that we didn't clearly define economic development, I guess shame on us, right? And maybe in the future we put tighter restraints on money, which makes it even harder to spend, right? I mean, I think the intent of not putting a definition on it was to be able to have some flexibility in the spending, but I just got to tell you, as a person who was sitting here making that vote and determining whether or not we were going to earmark that money, I think there was a clear intention, and I'm not arguing that whether an EIS impact does have economic development. I think our clear intention was to use it to springboard economic development, right? Which means some sort of a opportunity for a sudden insurgence forward, right? Not a long-term 20-year plan that, would eventually organically lead to some sort of economic development. I think in all of our minds, it was an opportunity to have a fund that if an opportunity came along, the money would be there, we'd be able to access it, and we'd be able to use it to see some sort of a tangible result, where I don't know out of the EIS, it's going to be certainly 20 years out, will we all be looking back and saying, yeah, it was tangible or not. But that was certainly my intent, and if it wasn't the intent of the rest of the council was here at the time, and it was intended to spend on a study that was being mandated by a 10-year update, and that was the vision, then so be it. But I'm just telling you from my standpoint, I don't think, if you look back at the comments and the discussion we had at the time we made the vote, that anybody intended it to move forward with an environmental impact statement. So that's my 2 cents.
Are there any other comments or questions at this time for staff? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion. Councilmember Merrill.
I move to adopt ordinance number 2030, budget amendment number 2, amending the 2025-2026 biannual budget, adopting an updated wage and salary schedule and plan of classification.
We have a motion as presented. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Mayor Pro Tem. So we have a motion as presented by Councilmember Merrill, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem. Is there any further discussion before I call for a vote? All right, all in favor, raise your right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. Are you voting yes? 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, 6. All opposed?
Mayor, I'm going to abstain to the large ticket.
And we have 6 in favor and 1 abstention. Thank you very much. We're going to move forward to ordinances and resolutions. Resolution 2524, amending the City of Oak Harbor Master Fee Schedule. Here to introduce that topic is our Deputy City Administrator and Finance Director, David Goldman.
All right. Good evening, Dave Goldman, Finance Director, Deputy City Administrator. This is an update, a more comprehensive update to the master fee schedule than the previous 2 that we did for very specific reasons. So the provisions of the Oak Harbor Municipal Code require fees for certain programs and services to be adopted in a master fee schedule. The fee schedule is reviewed annually, and revisions are presented to the City Council as needed to be adopted by the resolution. All the schedules except for Schedule E. Schedule E is Police, Schedule F, Public Works, and Addendum 1, Public Records, are proposed to be amended tonight. So last year when we did this, we showed, the clean version of the master fee schedule, and then we showed a cross-out and underlined version, and it was really difficult to read the cross-out and underlined version. It was just confusing to people. Things didn't line up all that neatly. So what we did this time around is we created a spreadsheet so we can line up each of the items that are in the master fee schedule next to each other that shows current and proposed, and we had a couple columns next to them. One column was the percent increase, and another column was when was the last time this was changed. Some of them, they were just updated earlier this year. Some were updated last year. Some haven't been updated since at least 2026. We didn't have any master fee schedule information before 2016. So some hadn't been updated for at least 8 or 9 years. So you'll see that in the column. And also the percentage increases for the fire schedule, Schedule C, are a little off, just based on a formulaic Excel error. Just keep that in mind. So, Schedule A are development services fees. These concern land development, and these fees were generally adjusted by about 3 or 4%, rounded up to the nearest, $1 or $5 or so on, depending on the magnitude of the fees. Some were increased by more than that due to years of not being updated. And also there's a section for impact fees. Those aren't being adjusted tonight or being proposed to be adjusted tonight. Those are being studied as part of a separate process. So also Schedule A, the building section of this schedule is mandated and set by the Washington State Building Code, which refers to the International Code Council, and there's a few RCWs up there, and there's an Oak Harbor Municipal Code section as well. And those fees are found in Table 17-1 to 17-3. So I did a little calculation here of the development services cost recoveries. This is just actually planning and zoning. This doesn't include the building division. So this is the percentage of the planning and zoning fees compared to the cost of providing that service. And you could see over time, it kind of bottomed out in 2020 during COVID and started increasing again. And for this year, actually for last year, 2024, it got up to 23%. So Schedule B are finance and utilities. Many of these fees have not been adjusted for a long time. So you'll see that those percentages, they might not be a large dollar amount, but the percentages might be a bit higher than the 3 or 4% from Schedule A. We're also adding a couple sections in here per the local business and occupation tax. It's tied into the new code sections for the local B&O tax, 3.98 and 3.99, and they mostly, pretty much almost all of them tie into these various RCWs you see on the screen. And we added a fee for payment. It was in the code update. We added a fee per payment for returned checks and insufficient funds at the same exact rate as currently in the utility billing section. And I have a chart here for business licenses. So these are business license endorsements. These aren't like your typical business license that you process through the state. These are specialty type items that are pretty infrequent compared to the 2,000 or so business licenses that are active in the city. There's pawnbroker, food trucks, about 10 liquor establishments. There's 3 taxi business endorsements, 6 peddler ones, and about 20 peddler day endorsements. They don't bring in a whole lot of money, but those rates have not been adjusted for quite a while, so we proposed some adjustments for them. Schedule C fire, the permitting structure is updated to better align permits to actual use and costs, and many of those fees have not been updated for going on 9-10 years. Probably, it may even be longer. We don't have the data from before that. Schedule D, we did a few specific things since we just updated the marina rates a little bit earlier this year. We removed special case moorage rates for emergencies. We implemented a moorage relocation fee, and then we adjusted the dinghy kayak storage fee. Schedule G, Parks and Recreation, we adjusted park facility reservation fees. We removed a reference and fees associated with private use rental daily rate, and we adjusted the hourly facility rental rates. And here's some graphics on the park facility rental usage. You can see that over the years it's been going up. 2025 is year to date. So, I mean, the year is, it says year to date. I think the figures are from about 3 or 4 weeks ago. But you'll see that, that it looks pretty flat, but this might pop up a little bit as the year completes. And as far as the revenue goes, you can see that the revenues are up. It was about $10,000 a few years back, and year to date, we're looking at about $30,000. So it's going in the trajectory that the City Council has directed us to pursue as far as getting better cost recovery on our park facilities. And with that, we have a suggested motion on the screen, and staff is available to field any questions you may have.
Thank you, David, for your presentation. I will first confirm that we received no public comment on this issue.
That's correct, Mayor. No public comments have been received.
Great. And is there anyone that is here with us this evening that would like to step forward and make public comment on this issue? All right, hearing none, I will call upon council for their questions and comments at this time. Councilmember Stuckey.
Do we have any adult entertainment licenses or adult entertainer licenses currently?
If you didn't see it on that chart, then the answer is no.
So we're just adjusting it by 37%, not having any licenses just because it's been a while?
We're trying to keep it cohesive with the other adjustments that we're doing based on the years that we've adjusted. So,
okay.
Yeah, that's that philosophy. So.
Okay, I don't need to dive farther into that one. Can we talk a little bit about, I mean, obviously a lot of the increases come to fire. Can we elaborate a little more on that? I mean, when I see alarms, 0 to 4 zones, and I see these 1 to 10, 20, I don't know what those numbers mean.
Mayor, City Council, Paul Shore, City Fire Marshal. So, on our old fee schedule, things were just broken down to where is super simplistic and trying to account for multiple devices at times to be figured out into the systems and to get good proper permit fee. What I did, I went down and I broke things out so they come in and then you just say, hey, we have to put in 10 detectors. The fees going across is very specific. So when those contractors come in, they know exactly what the permit fees for the amount of detectors, sprinkler heads that are going to be. And this falls in line with multiple other jurisdictions around the state. When I did this, I already had talked to multiple agencies, how they were doing things and their studies, and it just breaks it down easier for the contractors and for the builders, whoever's doing the projects, they have a better understanding of the fees.
And then I see, we're used to fees going up. I see a fee going down on the fire pump, going down from $550 to $375.
I just, with some of the study I did, I was part of another organization at the time that went through their fees, and we're looking at how many fire pumps have been installed in their area over the years, where it's with things. So having some knowledge on the backside with trends as to what's being installed, what's not being installed, it made sense to align some of our numbers, if not at the same, lower than some of the other places, other jurisdictions that I pulled the studies from.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Thank you, Paul. Anybody else? Questions, comments? Yes, Councilmember Marshall.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll start with a couple comments and then I'll ask my questions. My comment would be, I would encourage that we do these master fee schedule increases a little bit more incrementally than waiting so many years and then having such a significant increase. A 3 to 5% increase, I can understand. Costs go up year over year. But when we're having 100%, 200% or more increases, it's hard to swallow to say we're going to increase costs. And Paul, this is not directed directly at you.
No.
This is across the board. This is not just you.
So on the master fee schedule, I saw the one that you talked about. You saw the 100% increase. So in the studies where I gathered my data from and being part of one, further down on that page, you'll see 2 that were deleted for $500. And in doing so, because those were deleted out of the studies, and that one fee that you see is 100%, we actually went down on our fees for that block.
And again, this is not directed at fire. This is just, David mentioned some of these hadn't been adjusted since 2016. And throughout this,
some of these have been longer, per se.
Yeah, some of in multiple departments, these go back to 2017 and a little bit longer. We just had a huge master fee increase last year, where in my opinion only, some of these could have been addressed. But to make a comment, we are increasing the public display for fireworks by 100%, right? That's 100% increase in the permit for public display of fireworks. And when you compound that, and unfortunately I do have to take my private job, right? When you compound that with the increased park fees and all the other costs that go up, and then more asks for funding, and so higher costs, less funding, all of a sudden it becomes very difficult to have some of these. But Paul, I'm just looking at you, but I'm not addressing this to you.
So, for example, the fireworks.
Yeah.
So we do, within the city, we do fireworks twice a year, 4th of July, New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
With that being said, to help cover some of the permit fees that are coming back, because I'm down there during the event.
Yeah.
Down there all day and into the night until after those fireworks are done, to ensure, any fires are out with the crews that are on that day. That helps cover costs for those events to happen.
And I'm not disagreeing with that. I understand that.
The other thing with it, if you were to look in the RCWs, like with the fireworks costs, there's a max that you can't go over by the state. Like for the stands with it, there's a set amount that you can't go over.
Right.
With the RCWs. So we're at that level. We're at that point right there. But because the fees haven't been increased over the years, and then when we adjusted this to look at cost for man hours being down there, time that goes into the event, that's where we're at to try to cover those costs.
And I fully understand, you're nowhere near cost recovery. I get that. I guess my point is, though, if we were to increase incrementally instead of now it's 100% increase, because that's 100% increase that wasn't factored in when organizations are doing their planning, right? If they could say, okay, it's going to go up 10% a year, it's going to go up 15%, you can plan for that. But now it's 100% increase plus the increased cost of fireworks, plus the increased cost of the parks. Less funding, it becomes more difficult to put on community events. I mean, that's just the reality of it. And again, these comments are not directed just to you. This is just kind of an overall for finance and the administration, that if we could look at these things moving forward as we're reviewing these on an annual basis or biannual basis. So it's not, we waited until it's been 11 years and now we're going to make these increases. That's where I struggle with having just such huge jumps, and I'll use parks, for example. We just did parks last year, and now we're increasing, I believe, for the kayak rentals by 471% for the kayak and dinghy moorage, 471% increase. But on the other end, we're decreasing basketball court usage by 440%, and so I'm not. Those are, I don't know if Brian is here, but I'm struggling with some of those numbers as well.
Councilmember?
Yeah.
I didn't want to interrupt you, but there's a couple of things here. You are correct. What we are doing is looking at those comparables and those cost recovery elements when we're looking at these. And the entire point of this administration is there were several years where we weren't doing these updates, and so we're making sure that we're addressing those, and this is the annual update of what we're trying to do with that. So we do look at comparables like the basketball court rentals and see where other entities are, and then look at that comparably. But when you talk about 100%, for instance, the hydrant meter rent per day went from $5 to $10. So yes, that was 100%, but it is a minimal fee when you think about the overall charge. And then the water cutoffs lien enforcement went from $40 to $50, which is 20%, but it hasn't changed in 5 years. So we tried to really do this full picture look with different departments and make sure we're doing that. And we're doing that work every year as we go through this process. And that's why David's also improved, or the finance team, I should say, is also improving the form so that we have a better way of looking at these and give you a better outlook of how we're getting to that information.
And I appreciate that, Sabrina. I really do. I guess the struggle for me is the amount of time. We just did this stuff last year. We did a huge master fee increase, and some of these were obviously not looked at. And if we did these comparables last year, then why are we having to make the readjustments this year? I guess would be my question.
Well, and some of this is that we are looking at also the other costs associated with it, like our salary costs go up every year. Our maintenance fees go up. There's different costs that are associated with those that we're looking at when we're doing those comparables. So it is an assessment of those potential costs that we're going to have related to those services and making sure that we're trying to get as close as possible to cost recovery.
Okay. Can you explain to me the basketball court one then, please?
Oh, yeah, the basketball tournament. So it looks like they're just setting that to the same price of another tournament. There was a disc golf tournament that was $10 an hour, and the basketball was $50. So they were just setting that down to the same level as the other tournament fee. I mean, I guess they could have got it from 10 to 50 for disc golf. I don't know, but that's just the decision that was made based on their information that they had.
So, or is Brian here to talk about that?
So can you understand the frustration, though, the amount of different times we met to talk about this and the meetings that we had with the Parks and Rec Commission, and we are just going, it took us a long time to get to that point, and now we're backing away from it, and for one particular item. I just am curious on that. And then the huge increase for the kayak. I mean, how could we not land on that number the first time? And again, Dave, this is not directed at you either. I'm just asking the question because
I just know that when I work on stuff, my own stuff, sometimes I miss things here and there when it's a lot of data. So then the next time around, we're like, okay, these are the things we missed. Let's true it up based on, better information. Maybe the usage dropped off too far for something and they want to adjust it to get the usage back up, or maybe something's oversubscribed, so maybe they want to increase the rate for something that oversubscribed to more balance it out, to let more people participate in the item. It's just stuff that you learn as you kind of go through the process when you adopt something that's new. And I believe, what Parks and Rec went through in the past couple of years was pretty much reinventing an entire new program. And there's a learning curve to that. Even if you have 20 years experience doing Parks and Rec all over the country, every community is different. Every preferences for different types of sports and activities are different. So you just have to kind of adjust and go from there.
So hearing you and what you're asking, it sounds like we want maybe the commissions to do this in a more systematic way. Is that what you're asking for?
Yeah, and perhaps I missed it, but this was not discussed at the commission level, reducing these fees. And so it's just here we hadn't workshopped it. I don't believe we discussed it at the commission level. And so now we're here and asking to vote on it.
Brian is not here, no.
Okay. So I don't have an answer for you then. I mean, that's fair. I was just going to say, though, I mean, I think that's where we should address it at, though, is at that level. So,
I mean, I will say that David is correct. This has been this balancing game of starting the new program and figuring out what the right, fees are that we're charging, and then looking back at them and reevaluating them. So that has been part of the process, and that's what we did talk about at the last review of these fees, is, trying to figure out that right balance.
So what we got, though, was in the slides, we got this is how much we've made on park rentals, but we didn't get a breakdown of what actually happened with the increase on these field usage. So did we make more money on the field usage? Did we lose money as a result of the fees because of basketball? And so to have that data to be able to say, this is why I'm justifying, this change.
No, and that is a good question. What we're waiting for is the end of the year to do a full evaluation of looking at that information. We are presenting you as a council in each workshop with a packet of information about what fees we're getting, what we're seeing coming in, and that trend that we're seeing happen. So we are trying to give you more information so that you're having a regular updated look at what we're seeing every month as we go through this process and adapt these programs.
Thank you.
Councilmember Wittgenstein.
How many are, to kind of piggyback off Councilmember Marshall, how many of these are we still missing stuff that's going to keep popping up as the long-term plan future to not have to keep coming back every 10 years to fix something? Instead, the future plan is to, like, this comes up, every fee schedule we have should come through us on a regular basis versus, oh, we didn't do this because of this, or, we're fixing the past stuff. I get that.
Yeah.
And I guess what I'd like to hear is what's the plan for the future so that we don't have to keep coming back to do this again. I not to speak for Councilmember Marshall, but I believe that's kind of what he was trying to get at.
Well, under this administration, we developed a new process when it came to the fee schedule update. It was sort of ad hoc in the past, and this time it was more comprehensive. We outreached to all the departments, we worked with them, provided them the data they needed. They were able to get whatever other information that they needed in order to come up with fees that make sense for today. And we knew that there were a bunch of fees that weren't adjusted for a while, and what we wanted to do was reset them to current day, and then every year we would do that same process and bring to council more reasonable fees, more, more aligned with the actual cost of inflation. And if there's any adjustments that are a little different than the cost of inflation based on usage or encouragement of activities or other factors, whatever they might be, we would bring those up to council specifically. And we actually would bring those specifically to the different committees that are involved, with the different areas of the fee schedule, such as parks and marina and all that.
Thank you. That's kind of, we have a plan going forward, and it's been a part of the mayor's agenda all along to kind of straighten this stuff out. And so I'm just glad to hear we're doing it. And it's frustrating to keep coming back, but hopefully, next year we won't have as many, or won't have as many 10-year items on there. So thank you.
Councilmember Wiesner.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, thank you for those comments, David. The 8 years I've been on council has absolutely been ad hoc. Right, and we've gone from, I think 1 year we did a across-the-board percentage increase. Well, that didn't fly. I wasn't on board with that because that doesn't make sense that every single service costs X amount of dollars more to produce. I will say I went through this schedule and I could go through and nitpick it and et cetera, but I am going to agree that we've got to get to a reasonable basis, right? And we weren't because of the ad hoc way. And one thing I will say is I'm happy to see that we have different percentages. It looks like there was actually some thought put into it rather than you presenting us a fee schedule increase of 3% across the board. But this is where I get on my horse and just remind everybody in the city, and I know every employee here knows this, but a fee is associated with a service, right? And that is what we do to the community. We provide services, and with anytime we have fee increases, we expect either a higher level or at least a maintaining level of service. That's why we're increasing the fee to maintain that level of service. And so, I challenge every department, right, to look at the fees they're charging, understand the service that's associated with it, look at how maybe we can add efficiencies and still provide the same level of service without increasing the fee. I mean, that's a great challenge, right? That would be a fantastic goal for any department head to be able to look at a service they're providing and be able to do it better and provide a higher quality of service, but do it for less money. And I know that every department head we have strives for that. And that's the challenge I would put out there moving forward, that I love the idea that the mayor's come up with of looking at these on an annualized basis. But as we do that, there should be a little bit more of a justification. Now, we're kind of pulling numbers out of thin air, because how do you justify what's happened over the last 10 years with a service that you're providing? Whereas if you're doing it on an annual basis, you can look at what efficiency you may be able to provide to that service, or what increased service level you can provide for that additional fee that you're charging, that the public will actually see and notice and go, oh, look at that. We've all seen the headlines with the county, right? They've got a little bit of a can of worms, right? They're looking at I'm going to say third or fourth in the last 5 years, major increase in fees in some of their departments. And unfortunately, the service level has continued to decline. And what they're doing is they're funding a behemoth, quite frankly, right? They've built a little less efficient pool that they're working out of, and they're just trying to fund it and feed it, rather than maybe look at how they can make it more efficient and more service orientated. And I just don't want us to fall into that deal. And so every year when we have these master fee schedules, I think I've brought up the subject of, well, let's just make sure that the service level we're providing is commensurate with the fees we're charging, and challenge all the department heads to do that. And again, I know that's something we live for every day.
Yeah, and thank you, Councilmember Wiesner. One thing I will say is, out of this new process, we even have some departments, development services, for example, our building official looked at an evaluation rate of how we do something, and we're even taking the time to go through that process to look at how we evaluate that, and then also what code revisions do we need to do that are impacted by that. So there is that additional work being done, because we're seeing this process that we can utilize in order to adapt these and look at the fee structure we have. So that is a big picture for our staff. They're always looking at costs and how they're going to address that.
Ultimately, it just comes down to, we need to be able to look every citizen in the eye and have a justification for what we do, including these fees, even when it's $5, right? We need to have that justification. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody? Yes, Councilmember Romero.
I've been jotting down notes here. I will promise not to go into all of them. It's important to keep in mind that the fees and then the various taxes, property sales, other taxes, all of that is are costs imposed upon the users. So we are talking about internal processes, but we also need to be mindful of the end users. I'm always talking about an optimal mix, so that we don't crush demand for the services, and that we also make it available for people who maybe do not have the high degree of means. So as we're dealing with I'm all about adjusting the master fee schedule, but I am also aware that as we jump up 100% or whatever it may be on any one particular thing, then a business or a family, or especially businesses, which I strongly favor, prospering businesses in our community, that could be a game stopper for their whole operation. So in the Navy, we talked about scheduled maintenance and unscheduled maintenance. So I think that probably with regard to the fee schedule, there should be scheduled maintenance, now whether it be annual or biannual, and then being mindful of unscheduled maintenance, that is to say, unpredictable events that affect the need to make changes. But I'm emphatic about not pricing ourselves like the huge Seattle metro area. I mean, to me, it's like a nightmare with regard to doing anything in fees and all the rest of it. It's just a massive money machine. And right, that's true. I would agree with you. In fact, I do agree with you. And so there's a tendency in administrative states and administrative actions and legislative actions to see our process and not really deal with the end users. And so I'm in favor of this, but I definitely we need to have a deliberate, disciplined, scheduled and unscheduled maintenance of the fee schedules, if not annually, biannually. That's all I've got. Thank you.
So, yeah, I hear you, I appreciate you, but at some point, we have to establish the baseline. As Councilmember Wiesner was stating, we, I think, are there now across the board, and this will now become an annual thing that we're addressing and reviewing and bringing to council. We also have to put context into perspective when we're looking at things. When you talk about 100% increase and it's $5, I don't think that that's going to break anybody. So we have to be realistic in what we're talking about, too. So.
Thank you, Mayor.
Anything else for the good of the order? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to reiterate that I was not trying to be critical of any staff at all. I really appreciate all the work that you're doing. I appreciate you, Mayor, for taking the time to dig into these things and for all the departments to look at our schedules. And I appreciate that we are going to be doing this on a more of a routine basis. And that's all I was trying to get at. And so, I didn't mean to come off any certain way towards staff at all. I really appreciate all the work that you're doing and fully am supportive of what you do. So thank you.
No, and I think you were fair in how you did it, so it was all good. This is how dialogue is supposed to happen. I mean, maybe we should send this to Washington, D.C., and they could figure out how to get something done, too. So, anything else for the good of the order? All right, hearing nothing, I would entertain a motion. Yes, sir.
I strongly move to adopt Resolution 25-24, amending the Oak Harbor Master Fee Schedule.
Second.
All right, we have a motion as presented by Councilmember Mero, seconded by Councilmember Wittgenstein. Is there any further discussion before I call for a vote? Hearing none, all in favor, raise your right hand. All right, we passed unanimously. Mayor Pro Tem did have to drop off, so she is not with us any longer. All right, other items for consideration. We got one more thing and we're all done. Approval of accounts payable vouchers, Chamber of Commerce. Note, this voucher list contains a payment or payments to the Greater Oak Harbor Chamber of Commerce, of which Councilmember Marshall is the executive director. In order to avoid a conflict of interest, Councilmember Marshall has stated he will recuse himself from a vote on such payments, which are now a separate agenda item. I will confirm that we've received no public comment on this.
That's correct, Mayor. No public comments were received.
Thank you, Julie. And is there anyone here? Oh, yes. Oh, okay. Is there anyone here with us this evening that would like to make public comment? All right. Hearing none, I will call upon council for their questions or comments. Yes, Councilmember Wittgenstein.
I move to approve the accounts payable vouchers for the Chamber of Commerce.
All right, we have a motion to approve accounts payable vouchers as presented by Councilmember Wittgenstein.
I'll second it, just not to make him wait.
Seconded by Councilmember Wiesner. Is there any further discussion before I call for a vote? Hearing none, all in favor, raise your right hand. We have 5-4 and 1 abstention, is that right? All right, thank you very much. There being no further business this evening, is there a motion to adjourn?
Moved.
Nobody seconded.
We have a motion to adjourn.
I think we can see her.
Seconded by Councilmember Arms. All